I see a really dangerous scenario where there is a no-deal Brexit at the end of a transition period if trade talks are not elongated.
Well, why would the EU want that scenario? I mean, they've done the heavy lifting.
Political union. We've had this argument 10 times. And the argument is that they don't care as much about the economic ramifications as they do about the political ramifications. And off air, you've been kind of agreeing, actually, that the political ramifications from a successful Brexit could spell a very difficult period for the European Union.
Well, I think they've already done the heavy lifting. They decided, rightly or wrongly, to take the money, the 39 billion, by the way, which was always going to be a big inducement. And they also decided to ultimately be practical about issues like the Irish border. So I think they've kind of already played their cards. Why would they now come in and shoot an own goal and deny a sensible trade deal? It just doesn't make any sense. I think they've already passed that Rubicon. What I'm saying is, an emphatic Conservative victory matters a great deal to the politics in the EU as a whole, because surely at a time when, let's face it, Eurosceptic or far-right parties are doing well, just recently in Spain, all sorts of turmoil in Germany, this is, I'm afraid, going to encourage those centre-right Eurosceptic leaders in the rest of Europe say, hang on a minute, I want some of that.
But where does it leave a trade deal with the United States? Because there was recent pushback by President Trump about the type of deal that Boris Johnson had achieved and whether there would be a deal possible on the terms that was favourable all round with the United States. So clearly that would be a negative if it wasn't a decent deal.
I can't see that being an obstacle. And obviously, trade negotiations take time, and there's always a degree of give and take. And both sides will look to maximise their scenario. But I can't see why. Both leaders are actually ultimately practical. They both want their economies to do well. So I don't see it ultimately being an obstacle for a US trade deal, except just simply time.
Stephen Isaacs, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to the last 2 hours. Thank you very much indeed. Nice Monday morning as well. So that was Stephen Isaacs, Chairman of the Investment Committee at Alvine Capital. Just to say, that is it for Squawkbox for today. Next up is Street Signs, just looking at the legacy from those incredibly bullish US market closes on Friday, with the Dow in session going over 28,000 for the first time ever. Look at the legacy for Europe. We are down on most of the major European bourses. Even the FTSE 100 can't make any headway at all. Will it do in Street Signs? What more do you need to know about the markets? Well, we'll tell you over the next hour on CNBC.
The CNBC app has new features.
'Tis the season to be hunched over your laptop. Not on our watch. In real life, you can fill your senses and your baskets. Feel all the sights, sounds, lols, and OMGs. Wear laughing emojis on actual smiley faces. Battery is running low. Take the kids to Santa's Grotto. In real life, you can find just the right present using the most advanced search engine in the world. Your eyes. We can't in real life. Brent Cross, London. Free parking for all sleighs and cars.
At Lidl, we're big on all those Christmas parties. The season to be jolly. Try our Party Time Indian snack selection for only $2.99. And our Party Time mac and cheese bites for just $1.19. Big on a Christmas you can believe in. Now that's big on quality and always Lidl on price. Subject to availability, selected stores excludes I.
If you're planning on driving this weekend, expect delays on the A406 North Circular Road. There'll be road closures between Edmonton and Tottenham from 10 p.m. on Friday the 15th of November to 5 a.m. on Monday the 18th of November, while we carry out essential maintenance and repairs. All roads in the surrounding area will be extremely busy, so please allow more time for your journey and expect delays in the area. Plan ahead and check alternative routes at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Should we go halves?
I'll get this. Let me just get my card, which was in my pocket.
You can't control awkward first dates, but if you temporarily misplace your debit card, you can freeze and unfreeze it on our mobile banking app. Feel in control every day. Lloyds Bank, by your side. You can only freeze some transaction types. T's and C's apply.
Get to TradePoint for a massive 20% off power tools across big brands like DeWalt and Makita. And if you have loyalty discount, you'll get this on top. Don't miss 20% off power tools at TradePoint. Excludes DeWalt 18-volt 4-amp combi drill, Dremel 3000 15-piece and power tool clearance. Ends 24th November. In-store only on 23rd and 24th November, subject to availability.
From Ratman, creator of Shiro's Story, comes Blue Story, the groundbreaking movie of a generation, the story of Timmy.
You know I'm not part of the gang, man.
And Marco.
I'm
brother knows you're my guy, trust me.
Brought together by friendship.
I love this guy.
Divided by postcodes.
You done this thing? Your boy's done it.
An eye for a night, sometimes innocence die.
My boys, if you live in them ends, you're one of them.
Why are you letting your brother brainwash you?
Whoever ain't riding with, man, is riding against, man.
That's my son in there. I'm his mother, and no one ain't come to tell me nothing.
Rapman's Blue Story. In cinemas, November 22. Certificate 15.
This is not a commercial. This is a reminder. With TuneIn Premium, you could be listening to more music commercial-free. Get over 45 commercial-free music stations. Visit tunein.com/premium to upgrade.
The good snap, the ball put down, the right-footed kick is up, it's got the distance, it's accurate enough, it is good! The hand off to Carson, slithers through the crease between the guard and the center. And
tonight, TuneIn has your Monday night NFL football with the Kansas City Chiefs at the Los Angeles Chargers. Kickoff at 8:15 p.m. Eastern.
He lofts one in the end zone, it's a diving one-hand catch, the tight end in the back of the end zone!
At home or on the go, hear the home and away call of every NFL game this season on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Good morning and welcome to Street Signs. I'm Shimona Versace.
And I'm Willem Marks, and these are your headlines on this Monday morning. China cuts a key liquidity rate to support growth for the first time in 4 years. It also touts progress in trade talks as the boss of NASDAQ's listing business tells CNBC at East Tech West that investors are worried.
Really the most important topic in the U.S. and one that the Chinese companies looking to the U.S. are looking for some certainty around.
Violent clashes grip Hong Kong as police and protesters engage in a fierce battle at a university campus, while the High Court rules a ban on the use of face masks is constitutional.
And Saudi Aramco aims for a $1.7 trillion valuation in its highly anticipated IPO, well short of the $2 trillion goal set by the kingdom's crown prince.
And Spanish bourse BME becomes the center of a bidding war as Swiss Group 6 makes a €2.8 billion offer for the exchange moments after Euronext confirms takeover talks.
Welcome to the program. Happy Monday. The Ministry of Commerce in Beijing has said that telephone talks between Chinese and US officials this weekend were, quote, constructive. They focused on each side's concerns about a preliminary trade agreement. We all now know that as a phase 1 deal. The ministry said that US Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin and Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer had requested the conversation with their Chinese counterparts and that both parties agreed to stay in close contact. Reuters and the New York Times had reported that the Trump administration is expected to once more extend the ability of US companies to do business with Chinese telecoms giant Huawei. The US government had placed the tech company on an economic blacklist earlier this year due to concerns over national security. Our colleagues Jeff Cutmore and Nancy Hungford join us live at CNBC's East Tech West in the Chinese city of Nansha. Jeff, you spoke to Huawei's chairman just a few hours ago. How did he react to those reports?
Yeah, fascinating, Willem. He was really downplaying any potential impact from either the trade deal or an extension of licenses to US companies selling technology to Huawei. The message largely seemed to be, Nancy, it's not going to affect us hugely.
And they would say that, right? Because they want to take advantage of their home market, which is set to be the largest 5G market in the world. So, of course, that's the message we've been hearing from Huawei for quite some time. But I was quite surprised when you asked the chairman to what extent they're having discussions with the U.S. government at this stage.
And the message was not at all. I mean, you would think that over an issue this important, particularly where there is a security aspect involved, that the State Department, the Commerce Department, or even the Pentagon, for that matter, would be getting in touch with the company directly and asking for detailed information about their technology. But the message we had from the chairman was no, they have no direct conversation at this point. We also talked about whether there was any progress on something that the founder, Ren Zhengfei, had talked about, and that is getting together with a US business and licensing some of their technology to the US company to show that they could be a technology partner. Let's have a listen to how he responded to any progress they may have made on that issue.
No single U.S. company has approached us directly. When we said that we are genuine in offering our 5G technology through licenses to the U.S. companies so that they can develop their technologies and networks, we're genuine in that offer.
This could be a pathway to nullifying some of the complaints from the United States if you find a Western partner that you can work very strongly on technology sharing. Is that an avenue that the company is keen to explore, or was the offer of licensing 5G technology a bit of a token to try and perhaps distract the administration from its complaints against you?
Is not aiming to distract the U.S. government from the complaints. We are genuine in offering our 5G technologies through license to a U.S. company so that they will be able to develop their 5G technologies and networks. Regarding this, I understand that the U.S. government has a lot of concerns, but if one U.S. company got hold of 5G technology and developed on top of it, it could address the concerns around 5G technology, and it could accelerate the U.S. development of 5G.
So Chairman Liang Hua there suggesting that there has been very little progress on that issue of bringing a Chinese partner and a US partner to the table to make some progress on that particular story. Jumana, back to you.
Thanks, Jeff. And, you know, actually on the back of that, I was just looking at chip makers in Europe. There seems to be somewhat of a mixed reaction, and maybe it's because the reprieve is only a 2-week extension, not much longer. So certainly going to be a big driver for markets. But I want to take you to another development overnight out of Asia. The PBOC, the People's Bank of China, have cut a key liquidity rate for the first time in more than 4 years. In a surprise decision, China's central bank trimmed the 7-day reverse repo rate to 2.5% from 2.55%. The easing measure raises expectations of further stimulus by the PBOC. Let's get back out to Jeff and Nancy, who are obviously joining us live from the East Tech West conference in Nansha. I want to ask you about the macro environment in China. And obviously, you know, this has been positive news for equity markets overnight. The 5 basis point cut wasn't really expected. But the skeptic in me is saying, well, you know, it's only 5 basis points. How much of an impact is that really going to have on the overall Chinese economy here?
Skeptics never as journalists, Jumana, but I think you're right. I mean, the key word there is trimmed, because what we've been seeing from the Chinese authorities are really targeted, in this case, a very subtle change to that rate. And what this hints at is, yes, they're paying attention to what is happening in the way of an economic slowdown, but we've heard from Chinese authorities for a long time now that they don't want to do any flood-like stimulus. So what will there be in the way of additional stimulus? I think that depends on what happens to the economy from here and what kind of deal we get from the U.S. and China, because hopes are running high, admit it, at this stage, that we will at least get a phase 1 deal. And what's been interesting here at East Tech West is we've been talking to some key players across sectors as to whether or not a phase 1 trade deal would be enough to lift elements of uncertainty. And pretty much what I've been hearing is yes. We talked to Cisco's Guy Diedrich. He's really on the innovation side, but he was confident that a phase 1 deal would go a long way in just improving the mood, at least. And then when I spoke to the Nasdaq's Bob McCooey, who's in charge of listings, in large part looking to attract Chinese listings to the United States, he said that some of that uncertainty that has been weighing on Chinese potential IPOs, or at least hurting valuations in some cases, that a phase 1 deal would be enough to lift some of that uncertainty as well.
No, I think what's particularly resonant in that is that businesses are getting on with their own business in spite of this headline risk around the trade story. And as far as market sentiment is concerned, there is obviously sensitivity, and we see the ebb and flow of risk-taking in capital markets as it relates to the news flow on this trade story. But underlying that, these are not the only companies that are reporting improving sales into this marketplace. Deirdre spoke with Microsoft, and the messaging from Microsoft was last year we were quite cautious and concerned. This year, 12 months on at this event, we've actually had quite a strong year selling into the Chinese market, and all of that against the backdrop of this uncertainty around trade.
That is fascinating, and we were hearing similar messages from others. I mean, I go back to Bob McCooey, and he was extremely bullish on the potential for more IPOs out of China into the U.S. In fact, given what we've seen recently with the U.S. listing market and some concerns there among companies who can't prove a path to profitability, then not being able to list or at least reconsidering their listings, if the U.S. is going to see more of a pause on potential IPOs, he says that's reason to look more at China for those IPOs that still want to come to the U.S. despite competition growing from China.
Yeah, and that's a fascinating story when you connect it back into where Jemana led us into this conversation, which is this reverse repo move that we haven't seen for 4 years, and the fact that there was also an injection of liquidity into the banking system at the same time. We're talking about access to capital, and the reason the Nasdaq seems to be doing so well and has picked up those listings this year is that Chinese companies are voting with their feet, and they are going to where they feel there are deeper pools of liquidity, because as we know, if you are, and this is not so much a potential unicorn or moonshot technology company, but if you are just a small business looking for support from the banking system here, 75% of loan applications from small businesses get rejected by the established banks here. So there are very few other routes to capital, because this is a marketplace, much like Europe, where companies are very reliant on the banking system to get their capital for growth. And the Chinese government would like to actually see that change, but it is difficult turning around a supertanker.
That indeed is true, and it does raise questions too about what we've seen back to the tech side of things and in terms of the venture capitalist firms in China. I mean, Arjun was making this point earlier. There are concerns that an environment that was ripe with cash before, pouring money into these firms, that is slowing down a little bit in this environment.
All right. Well, let's send it back to the studio in London from here at East Tech West in Nansha.
Thanks both to you, Jeff and Nancy. Really appreciate your time there. Well, we're joined by Christoph Schoen, the Executive Director of Applied Research at Contigo. Are investors overly positive, Christoph, about the resolution, the potential resolution of a phase one, we like to call this term, trade talks?
They are certainly very optimistic. I mean, we're going from record high to record high at the U.S. stock markets, so they really seem to be buying into a trade deal that is imminent.
And what happens to people's portfolios if that optimism proves to be unfounded?
So what we're going to see is the typical flight to quality environment. So we will see money going out of the stock market into the bond market. So we will see treasury yields going down. And also we're going to see flows from the US dollar into currencies like the Japanese yen or the Swiss franc. So both of them have been consistently negatively correlated with the US stock market in particular.
How much impact do you think the trade war has had overall on trading and trading sentiment this year? I mean, given, as you just said, markets are going from strength to strength, is that on back of optimism of the trade war or on back of something else more solid fundamentals?
Well, when we looked at all of the geopolitical risks over the last 2 years, say, so we were looking at the trade war, we were looking at Federal Reserve policy, we were looking at Brexit, we were looking at the recession fears in Germany. The trade war was the most dominant one, kind of outweighing what the Fed would do, like even markets pricing in and out rate cuts just because of what was happening on the trade front.
Right, but there's also an argument that the reason markets are so high is because the Fed cut interest rates, and the Fed probably had to cut interest rates because of the trade war. So there's a bit of circularity going on here. We wouldn't be where we are if the Fed hadn't cut interest rates.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, because when you look back at the end of July, when the Fed first cut by 25 basis points, the initial market reaction was actually negative, which I found was very surprising, given what markets had done in reaction to previous rate cuts, be it 25 or 50, usually the market reaction would have been positive. 25 kind of signaling an insurance cut, 50 kind of signaling a bit of a more severe problem. So it was meant to be an insurance cut, but markets actually went down initially. So I think the Fed had lost a bit of credibility at that point, but I think they regained it since.
Christoph, you, like many other investors, I'm sure, have gone back and looked over the last couple of years. You've run historical models looking at the reaction to the various headlines around trade. Do you think, based on that research, that a lot of the noise around trade has meant that the confidence you see in financial markets is essentially decoupled from underlying economic data?
Yes, in particular, when you look at European markets. So if you look at the first half of this year, I mean, we've had bad news out of Germany pretty much since October last year, and still we had one of the best half years ever in European financial markets, and this was all entirely driven by what happened in the US, in particular the optimism around the trade war that we saw in the first 4 months of the year, and also the Fed being seen as ahead of the curve, as proactive, as a central bank that is in control of the market.
So broadly, stock markets are up, let's say 20% this year. Are you saying that it's unlikely we get a repeat of that price performance going into 2020?
Well, I mean, we're kind of 10 years into that bull market, so I think you've probably had loads of people saying, like, we can't go on for another year, and still we did. So I think if we would get positive news on the trade front going forward, then I think markets will keep going up.
All right, so certainly we've got to go back to where we started from, which is phase one. Watch what happens with phase one deal if it actually does get over the line. Christoph, thank you very much for joining us. Christoph Sean, Executive Director at Applied Research from Contigo. But if you want to get involved in the conversation, also anything you want to speak about with regards to East Tech West, we've obviously got Jeff, Nancy, and a whole crew out there. Get involved on Twitter at StreetSignCNBC. You can also tweet us directly. I'm at CNBC Zhu, and Willem is at Willem Marks.
And coming up on the show, Spanish bourse BME becomes the center of a bidding war. We'll have more details for you on that after this break.
Got to tell you about our beautiful city break in Bath. Midweek is the perfect time to beat the crowds. Just an hour and a half by train from London. It was so relaxing. We headed straight for Bath Christmas Market. Oh, I can still smell the roasted chestnuts and mulled wine from the chalets. Then it was time for glow-in-the-dark mini-golf. I got a hole-in-one. Well, 3. I'm a bit rusty, okay? There's so much to do in Bath. I'm already planning my next trip.
Discover the magic of Bath this Christmas. Plan ahead at visitbath.co.uk/Christmas.
'Tis the season to be hunched over your laptop. Not on our watch. In real life, you can fill your senses and your baskets. Feel all the sights, sounds, lols, and OMGs. Wear laughing emojis on actual smiley faces. Battery's running low. Take the kids to Santa's Grotto. In real life, you can find just the right present using the most advanced search engine in the world. Your eyes. We can't in real life. Brent Cross, London. Free parking for all sleighs and cars.
Once in a while, a movie comes along that leaves critics and audiences breathless. That movie is Le Mans 66.
We're gonna beat Ferrari with a Ford.
Are you nuts? Starring Academy Award winners Matt Damon and Christian Bale.
They hate guys like us because we're different.
Don't miss the incredible true story of Ford v Ferrari.
Trust me.
It's one of the year's must-see films. It's sensational. A triumph.
Together, we're gonna make history.
Le Mans 66.
You're gonna want to see this.
In cinemas and IMAX now.
At Lidl, we're big on those little reasons to be jolly. Like our delicious Favorina all butter mini Stollen bites for just $1.99. And 6 deluxe mince pies for just $1.35. Big on a Christmas you can believe in. Now that's big on quality and always Lidl on price. Subject to availability, selected stores excludes I.
If you're planning on driving this weekend, expect delays on the A406 North Circular Road. There'll be road closures between Edmonton and Tottenham from 10 p.m. on Friday the 15th of November to 5 a.m. on Monday the 18th of November, while we carry out essential maintenance and repairs. All roads in the surrounding area will be extremely busy, so please allow more time for your journey and expect delays in the area. Plan ahead and check alternative routes at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
The world is a noisy place, but whether I'm here or here, my phone calls are always loud and clear on my Doro 6620. Hi, love. Yes, I can hear you perfectly. I'm 10 minutes away. Get your Doro 6620 from Amazon, Tesco, and O2 today.
Welcome back to Street Signs. Well, let's take a look at how European markets are faring this morning. Yet again, Wall Street reached another record high for the three majors, up around 0.8%. We had U.S. retail sales numbers come out on Friday, slightly better than expectations, and of course a big jump from the numbers we had the prior month when there was a 0.2% fall for the month of September. So retail sales set the tone for Friday, but overnight again, the mood is quite positive in Asia. The Chinese Commerce Ministry is saying that the two sides are having constructive talks with respect to the prospects of a phase one trade deal. And yet again, investors are sitting on the sidelines waiting to see whether or not that trade deal can get over the line. Also, as we were just talking about, the PBOC surprised markets by cutting the RRR rate by about 5 basis points. Again, a very positive signal for Asian markets overnight. So the handover was positive, but you can see that Stock 600 is lacking direction this morning. We're basically treading on water around the flat line, slightly in positive, but you can see the heat map is roughly 50-50 between the green and the red stocks. But let's talk about individual indices and break it down further. Starting with the FTSE 100, the relative outperformer, the only spot of green we have really on the bourses this morning, just above 7,300. And yet again, here the focus has much been on the political developments. Latest polls over the weekend suggesting a very big lead for the Tory party over Labour Party. 14 points or so as we get into December 12th election. So that has somewhat been perceived to be positive by the market and also for the pound as well. Xetra DAX in Germany down about 0.2 of a percentage point. Some of the industrial names are lagging there. CAC 40 down 0.2 as well. Here right at the bottom, yet again, we have luxury stocks in focus getting hit by the escalation of violence in Hong Kong over the last 24 hours. Also, autos coming under pressure as well. Volkswagen was one of the names that is dragging down the German index a little bit. They just released their new guidance. And then FTSE MIB in Italy down about 0.2 of a percentage point as well. Talking about specific sectors, though, let's look at the breakdown here in terms of a positive and negative. We've got banks having a good start to the day today, up about 0.4 of a percentage point. Financial services very much in focus, up almost 0.8 of a percentage point. There is a bidding war going on for the Spanish bourse BME, but we'll talk about that in just a few moments. But definitely part and parcel of the consolidation that we continue to see in the stock exchange industry. So financial services having a good session today. Real estate also up about 0.9 of a percentage point. On the downside, construction material down about half. Autos, I mentioned, also having a negative start to the week. And then industrial, some of those German names driving some of the underperformance this morning as well, down about 0.3 of a percentage point.
Well, one of the top corporate stories in Europe this morning, the Spanish bourse BME is at the centre of a bidding war this morning. First, the French-listed Euronext confirmed it was in talks over a potential takeover bid and said discussions, quote, may or may not lead to an offer being made. Then moments later, the Swiss group SIX has made an offer of 34 euros a share. That represents a 33% premium over BME's closing price on Friday, and it values the company at 2.8 billion euros. In the last half an hour, the CEO of SIX said he received a friendly response from BME to what he called, quote, an extremely strong offer. He added the move is about boosting the company's top line. So that's SIX. Our colleague Charlotte Reed joins us now with some details. And Charlotte, what makes sense about a potential acquisition for Euronext, the French-listed exchange operator?
This CEO has been on an acquisition. Stéphane Boujnah has been a CEO of Euronext since 2015, and he's been acquiring quite a few exchanges. And he already said in the strategy day that they had just mid-October that they were looking for more acquisitions. So this is not a surprise. And also, there's a logic behind Euronext acquiring Madrid, already own Lisbon, Amsterdam, Brussels, some of these small stock exchanges. There's very few standalone stock exchanges that still to be snapped up in Europe amid a consolidation in the sector. So Madrid makes sense for Euronext. In the last bidding war, Euronext won. It was against Nasdaq to snap up the Oslo Stock Exchange, and they won that one in May. Just a year before, it was Dublin that also Euronext acquired. So yes, that's a logical step. Investors seem to like it. Euronext is up 45% this year alone. So.
And it's interesting that you say that in previous episodes, they have been quite aggressive when it comes to bidding, and they've won both of those previous episodes that you mentioned. In this case, we know this morning that Euronext have confirmed that they're in talks with BME, but we don't know the number yet. We just know the number from SIX, the Swiss Stock Exchange, who themselves are already bidding at a 33% premium to the BME closing price on Friday. So that really sets a tone for how aggressive this bidding war could get between the two sides. Euronext have shown appetite in the past to go and be quite forceful.
Yes, so we'll have to wait and see if Euronext then come up with a figure and a better figure than 6 for BME. But, you know, again, another potential target for Euronext, because they said they would be on the lookout, would be Milan. Because while LSE is in their deal with Refinitiv to extend in the data sector, they might be willing to get rid of the Milan Stock Exchange, and that's also been rumored for Euronext, a potential target. Madrid or Milan would have been two exchanges that would make sense for Euronext to acquire in the future.
They seem to be consolidating amongst all of these pan-European bourses. How much of that do you think is them eyeing what's happening this side of the pond, seeing what's happening with the LSE, the acquisition of Refinitiv? That puts them slightly on the back foot, but it's interesting that their strategy is to acquire other bourses rather than to go after some of the data providers, which has been the LSE approach.
Euronext said they want to do both. They want to carry on their strategy to acquire new stock exchanges like they've done for a few years, but they also want to extend in this data branch of the business. So they want to do both, and that this one acquiring Madrid is also again very much part of the normal strategy that we expect from Euronext that they've been carrying on for the past few years successfully. So we'll have to keep an eye on how. But if you compare Deutsche Börse, that is massive. It's about 26 billion euros market cap. LSE is something similar. Euronext is only about 5 billion euros, and Madrid is about half of that. So they're really, really small compared to the big two giants in the European sector. So again, Euronext want to stay relevant and acquire this smaller stock exchange to try and compete with all these two giants in Europe.
And it's interesting to think about the breakdown of revenues from these stock exchanges at the end of the day, because one of the big themes that we've been discussing on the show is there has been a lack of M&A activity in Europe. There haven't been as many IPOs. A lot of the action has been happening in the United States, not in Europe. So they have to seek alternative sources of revenue here. Commissions obviously a lot lower, IPO activity a lot lower. And where does the branching out into other bourses within pan-Europe actually play into that? Because, as you mentioned, in this case, BME is quite small. It's got a market cap of, say, 2.8 billion euros. How complementary could that be to the overall revenue of Euronext in a situation like this?
Again, it's trying to keep some market share in that market compared to LSE and Deutsche Börse are massive. If you want to keep a market share in that industry, you need to get bigger, otherwise you become irrelevant. And that was a message from the CEO of Euronext in the strategy day to BME, already telegraphing that if you stand alone as a stock exchange, you become irrelevant in this market. So you need to join forces and in a bigger group, you stay more relevant. Again, for Euronext themselves in that strategy day, they said that acquisition, it was part of their strategy for the future. Data, again, like the LSE. And also post-trade service, they want to grow bigger in that branch as well for the industry to again attract investors, attract money.
Yeah, so it's all about diversification. Then you can't just stick to the old trade model. It has to be across all of these three different segments. Charlotte, thank you very much. An exciting deal, no doubt. We'll be watching it over the next couple of weeks, see how it folds out, and also the counterbid for Euronext once we get an offer from them.
A lot to watch there. Coming up on the show, though, we'll head back to the Chinese city of Nansha for more from our conference, East Tech West.
Plus, protesters and police clash in one of the worst days of violence in Hong Kong. All the details coming up in just a few moments.
Imagine a library in your pocket, a web of knowledge.
There are plenty of parties over the festive period. They'll have food and drink, music too. Some will even have rides and fireworks. But one has all that,
plus a big something extra. Big Game 12 is London's biggest rugby party. To watch Harlequins take on Leicester Tigers from just £17 a ticket for children and £27 for adults, go to tickets.quins.co.uk or search Big Game 12. Kick-off 4:30pm, Saturday 28th of December, Twickenham Stadium.
'Tis the season to be hunched over your laptop. Not on our watch. In real life, you can fill your senses and your baskets. Feel all the sights, sounds, lols and OMGs. Wear laughing emojis on actual smiley faces. Battery is running low. Take the kids to Santa's Grotto. In real life, you can find just the right present using the most advanced search engine in the world. Your eyes. We heart in real life. Brent Cross, London. Free parking for all sleighs and cars.
For the independent bookseller who found you that first edition. For the baker who brings the smell of freshly baked bread to your door.
And for the barista who never needs to ask your name.
We've all got a part to play.
Every little tap keeps your high street alive.
And helps your communities thrive.
So if you love where you live, shop small.
Shopping on your local high street can make a big difference. Shop small. Only by American Express.
At Lidl, we're big on all those Christmas parties. The season to be jolly. Try our party time Indian snack selection for only $2.99. And our party time mac and cheese bites for just $1.19. Big on a Christmas you can believe in. Now that's big on quality and always Lidl on price. Subject to availability, selected stores excludes an eye.
If you're planning on driving this weekend, expect delays on the A406 North Circular Road. There'll be road closures between Edmonton and Tottenham from 10pm on Friday the 15th of November to 5am on Monday the 18th of November, while we carry out essential maintenance and repairs. All roads in the surrounding area will be extremely busy, so please allow more time for your journey and expect delays in the area. Plan ahead and check alternative routes at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Elsa, the past is not what it seems. You must find the truth. Journey into the unknown with Disney's Frozen 2, the most anticipated musical movie event of the year.
We do this together, okay?
This November.
I believe in you, Elsa, more than anyone or anything. Into the air.
Change is in the air. Frozen 2. In cinemas November 22nd.
Welcome back to Street Signs. I'm Willem Marks.
And I'm Jemina Bersecci, and these are your headlines.
China touts progress in US trade talks amid reports that Washington will grant Huawei a license extension. And the company's chairman tells CNBC exclusively at East Tech West, any decision will have a limited impact.
Our products are able to be shipped without the reliance on the U.S. components and chips. We're able to timely supply our customers with our products.
Violent clashes grip Hong Kong as police and protesters engage in a fierce battle at a university campus, while the High Court rules a ban on the use of face masks is unconstitutional.
Meanwhile, Saudi Aramco aims for a $1.7 trillion valuation in its highly anticipated IPO. That's well short of the $2 trillion goal set by the kingdom's crown prince.
And the Spanish Bourse BME becomes the center of a bidding war as Swiss Group 6 makes a €2.8 billion offer for the exchange moments after Euronext confirms takeover talks. Well, we've got a bit of a mixed session for European bourses this morning, lacking direction despite the strong handover from Wall Street on Friday and a very strong session for Asian equities as well. This after the surprise triple R cut by the PBOC. Only 5 basis points, but still does signal that perhaps further easing is ahead. And of course, as ever, all eyes on the potential for a phase 1 trade deal. The Chinese Commerce Ministry has pointed to a constructive phone call between the two sides over the weekend. So that was the mood out of Asia, not so much much in Europe. As you can see, FTSE 100, the only index slightly in the green, just above the flat line, up about 2 points there. All eyes on the political developments. Xetra DAX in Germany down about 0.2 percentage point. A couple of names we're watching out for. At the bottom, we've got chemicals. A lot of the cyclical names are under pressure. Covestro right at the bottom. Volkswagen, also another name that we've been watching today. They've updated their guidance for the year, confirmed actually their guidance for 2020 and 2025, but still the stock is trading on the back foot. Autos also underperforming in the CAC 40 as well. So Renault continues its recent spat of underperformance, and you continue to see that today in the CAC 40. So that index is down about 0.25 percentage points, but close to the top, we've got Euronext, as we've just been talking about, that they have confirmed that they are in talks with the Spanish bourse, BME, over potential takeover. So definitely a story to watch there in terms of deal making in that space. FTSE MIB in Italy down about 0.1 percentage point. Let's switch and take a look at foreign exchange though. And there are not a lot of drivers actually in terms of macro data to watch out for. We do get the FOMC minutes later this week, ECB minutes as well. But we had the big numbers all come out last week, those PMI numbers. We've got Euro now trading about sideways, 110.60 is where we're at, up about 0.1 percentage point. Some of the safe haven currencies coming off today. The yen is about 0.2 percentage point weaker versus the dollar. But then sterling pound doing very well today, up at 129.60, almost through 130, up about 0.5 percentage point. And yet again, this is on back of the polls that were released over the weekend showing that the Conservative Party has a big majority versus Labour to the tune of about 14 points. So that bodes well in terms of the possibility of Boris Johnson's Brexit deal getting passed, and is being perceived to be a positive reaction, a positive news for UK assets. So that has been the reaction in sterling this morning. Let's take a look at US futures. As I mentioned, another stellar session across the three indices on Friday, all making record gains, record highs yet again. And the picture is still positive this morning as well. I've got S&P, Dow, NASDAQ all seen opening up in slightly more positive territory. Not so much on the agenda today, but as I mentioned, the Fed minutes is something to watch out for, as well as the ongoing potential trade talks between the US and China. And don't forget, of course, there's the news this morning that the White House are considering an extension for the reprieve for the Huawei license for some of those US companies. So that will have ramifications from some of the tech names in the US later today as well.
Well, that's the US markets, Joanna. Let's turn back to Asia now, where earlier today, Hong Kong's High Court ruled that an emergency law to ban the use of face masks was unconstitutional. There's also been a sharp escalation of violence in the Chinese territory, as you can see in these pictures. Security forces and student protesters clashing at a university campus there. Police fired tear gas and rubber bullets at activists, and one officer was shot with an arrow. NBC News' Dan Sheneman has the latest for us.
Police move in, advancing on the Hong Kong Polytechnic University. After issuing an ultimatum to protesters inside the school, police in tactical gear stormed the campus using tear gas, water cannon, and threatening to use live ammunition. Explosions and fires erupted during the siege. Protesters, who've been barricaded inside the university for days, launched homemade gasoline bombs at the authorities. Some of the protesters were hurt, some arrested.
I think everyone are afraid of this.
The protests started after legislation was proposed that would allow criminal suspects to be extradited to the Chinese mainland. Activists saw it as an erosion of Hong Kong's autonomy.
I want the democracy and freedom will come Hong Kong, but it seems very far away from us.
China's president has said he is confident the government can resolve the crisis, but after 6 months of hostilities, there is no indication the protests will wind down. Dan Sheneman, NBC News.
Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia's Aramco IPO has been valued at between $1.6 and $1.7 trillion. That is less than the $2 trillion valuation that the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman had initially sought. The state oil giant has set a price range of 30 to 32 riyals per share. And that means the company listing remains on course to be the world's largest. Our colleague Dan Murphy has more.
Saudi Aramco issued a share price range on Sunday that values the firm at up to $1.7 trillion US. And yes, that is less than the initial $2 trillion flagged by the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman when this process first began. Aramco also confirmed across the weekend that it plans to offload 1.5% of the business, and it's going to do so by offering shares priced between 30 and 32 Saudi riyals each, or about $8 apiece. In terms of the timing moving forward, Aramco also says that retail investors will have until November 28th to take part in this deal, while institutional investors taking part in the book build will have until at least December 4th. That means we're likely to get details around the final pricing here sometime around December 5th. Now, when you look at the situation regarding the valuation, it's very clear that perhaps within the kingdom, they have had to have somewhat of a reality check when it comes to aligning their own expectations with the realities of the public market. Despite that, though, Aramco is still on track to deliver a record-breaking payday for the Saudi government when this business goes live on the domestic Tadawul exchange sometime next month. At the top end of the range, Aramco is on track to raise about $25.6 billion US, which would break the record for the world's largest IPO set by Alibaba back in 2014. However, at the lower end of the range, it would likely fall short. Importantly for investors as well, the devil is in the detail here. Aramco has also said that it plans to pay out about $75 billion in 2020. However, when you look at the yield, this implied valuation would suggest that Aramco would yield between 4.4 and 4.7%, and importantly, that is less than Aramco's smaller rivals like Exxon and Shell, which both yield around 5 and 6%. Nevertheless, this roadshow continues at pace, despite the fact that investors have flagged some concerns about Aramco's governance, Aramco's security, and Aramco's strategy moving forward. We have seen the company attempting to tap wealthy Saudi families to take part in the IPO, and also tapping international investors as well across China, Russia, and the Middle East to ensure that this IPO is the success that the government needs it to be. It's back to you.
Well, speaking of high-profile IPOs, that was Dan Murphy there speaking about Saudi Aramco. But CNBC has confirmed that Alibaba has decided not to hold an upcoming investor event focused on its second IPO in Hong Kong. Other news organizations had earlier reported that increasingly violent protests there had meant the Chinese e-commerce giant called off the meeting with institutional shareholders, at which it had planned to pitch its secondary listing. Our colleague Jeff Cutmore, Nancy Hungerford, still holding down the fort for us at CNBC's East Tech West in the Chinese city of Nansha. We've got no confirmation independently that this Alibaba IPO event was cancelled, guys, because of those protests in Hong Kong. But Jeff, are the confrontations there a topic of conversation for Chinese business leaders you're talking to in Nansha?
Willem, when it comes to talking about the markets and maybe the direction for the economy, then yes, those conversations are had. But remember, this is primarily a technology conference, so we are talking about the rollout of things like 5G, AI, the cloud, and so on and so forth. So it's less of an issue, really, in the conversations that we're having around that. You'd probably hear a lot more about it if you were at an event that was more focused, I would say, on markets and risk appetite.
Yes, I think that's fair. And when we talk about this issue around Alibaba as well, I mean, the source speaking to CNBC mentioned the fact that they don't need this lunch in a way because the company is so well known. Take that for what it is, but I do think that there is a case to be made that Alibaba is so unique with this secondary listing. And why I bring that up is because when I was speaking to the NASDAQ APAC chairman, Bob McCooey, we had a discussion about Alibaba and to what extent the NASDAQ was watching the success or failure, but let's say success of this IPO in Hong Kong as a bellwether, and whether or not that would then present more competition going forward, because companies may look at a successful Alibaba launching in Hong Kong and say, okay, now is the time to go IPO in Hong Kong. But then he said, sure, that's a possibility, but keep in mind, this is a very unique story with Alibaba, not just given the sheer size of this listing, but also that it is a known entity in many ways.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of speculation, as you know, about whether this was encouraged by the Chinese government as a way of trying to send a signal to the business community that Hong Kong is still open for business, at least the Hong Kong stock market, because as we know, the protests in Hong Kong have had an impact on the economy. And of course, now you're seeing some Asian carriers talking about reducing their flights into Hong Kong. And because there seems to be no end in sight near term for these protests, it is a major concern for businesses that have an operation in the territory. But whether it's really the cause of Alibaba's decision at this point, very hard to say.
Yeah, and keep in mind, it's not just Alibaba, of course. We saw the AB InBev APAC unit list in Hong Kong after previously having that delay. We've seen other smaller companies list to market that some cases have gone off very well in Hong Kong. So I think people are keeping a closer eye on this, but without a doubt, globally, the Alibaba IPO is going to generate some attention. I will say, though, when it comes to what we're hearing here that people are worried about from a macro geopolitical level, it's still far and away the China-US trade tensions, don't you think?
Yeah, and it's been a very mixed bag, I have to say. I think compared to last year when there was a lot more uncertainty, I think 12 months on, people have come to terms with the idea that uncertainty is something you're just going to have to live with and move on with in terms of your business model. And perhaps most surprisingly, some Western companies that sell into the Chinese market actually say they've managed to do okay in spite of the headline issue of the trade dispute. I just want to play you a little clip here. This is from a conversation with Alain Crozier that Deirdre was involved in. Let's hear what he had to say, because he talks about the importance of this trade story and its impact on their business.
When we started to come to China 27 years ago, Bill Gates, decided that we will have a contribution to the market, to the country. And so we started with our first R&D center. We have 4 now. And the last one, the 4th one, just opened some months ago, in the middle of this US and China tension, war, as you say. And so you have to be really committed for the long term, but you need to be committed to a strong contribution to the market. We also have decided to really work extensively with partners. And those partners have a very different flavor today. Some of our competitors, local competitors, are now some of our largest partners. Why? Because we've decided that together we are going to bring something different to our customers. And by the way, to a lot of new customers. And so, you change the way you work, you change your business model, but you stay core to your mission, which is to really empower companies and help them achieve more. And I think you can have a much better life in China.
Now, one of those core missions for Microsoft has been advancements in artificial intelligence and machine learning, and where it may be different to work on those things in the West when it comes to, say, facial recognition. The Chinese ecosystem for that is very robust, and you guys have had a partnership with the Chinese Military University to develop some AI projects. How do you make sure that the ethics you have in Redwood, Seattle, are carried over here in China?
Yeah, so I think you need to look at AI through a set of principles. And Microsoft and Satya Nadella and Brad Smith, our president, have decided that Microsoft, we will have and we will make sure that we operate under those principles. So we have 6 of them, and very strict around transparency and security and privacy. And so we have to stay core to that. And so we decide that potentially we won't do business, or we won't really address and touch AI in some cases. And so we can do business with some companies and some partners, but we will decide that maybe we won't do the entire set of business and deploy the entire set of technology with those partners and customers.
So there you have it. Microsoft's China head Alain Crozier there talking about the business outlook. And I think you put it right, Jeff. It really has been somewhat of a mixed bag. But business leaders we've been talking to, tech players, have said they really have to get on with business as normal to the best that they can in light of this uncertainty. But I will say hope is running high that a phase 1 deal is within reach at this point. With that, back to you for now, guys.
And indeed, we see that in the markets as well. Certainly a lot of optimism ahead of the potential talks that could take place between the two sides this week. Jeff and Nancy, thank you very much for your coverage at East Tech West in Nansha. Now, also coming up in the show, new polls suggest the UK Conservatives hold a commanding lead over the Labour Party. But find out why our next guest says Jeremy Corbyn's chances of entering number 10 are underpriced. We'll be right back.
me as he does this.
The amount of
Cold Monday mornings like this are cruel. You cough, you splutter, so does your car. Its battery dead, killed by an icy claw. Will anyone stand up to winter? Yes, you. Come to Halfords. We fit new batteries on the spot from just £15, and we're open late 7 days a week. See halfords.com for opening hours. Here in Wandsworth. Ready for the cold snap? Ready for anything. Halfords, for life's journeys.
Batteries sold separately. Selected vehicles only in most stores.
'Tis the season to be hunched over your laptop. Not on our watch. In real life, you can fill your senses and your baskets. Feel all the sights, sounds, lols, and OMGs. Wear laughing emojis on actual smiley faces. Batteries running low? Take the kids to Santa's Grotto. In real life, you can find just the right present using the most advanced search engine in the world. Your eyes. We can't in real life. Brent Cross, London. Free parking for all sleighs and cars.
It's hard to find a children's gift which doesn't have a short shelf life. They'll eat all the chocolates in 5 minutes, finish their video games by the end of the week, and grow out of their trainers before you know it. So instead of buying them something just for Christmas, buy them something that's for life. Premium bonds from NS&I. Every month they'll have the chance to win cash prizes. And now you can buy premium bonds for any child. Start their savings journey from just £25. Search Gift Premium Bonds to find out more.
At Lidl, we're big on all those Christmas parties. The season to be jolly. Try our Party Time Indian snack selection for only $2.99. And our Party Time mac and cheese bites for just $1.19. Big on a Christmas you can believe in. Now that's big on quality and always Lidl on price. Subject to availability, selected stores excludes an eye.
If you're planning on driving this weekend, expect delays on the A406 North Circular Road. There'll be road closures between Edmonton and Tottenham from 10 p.m. on Friday the 15th of November to 5 a.m. on Monday the 18th of November, while we carry out essential maintenance and repairs. All roads in the surrounding area will be extremely busy, so please allow more time for your journey and expect delays in the area. Plan ahead and check alternative routes at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Welcome back to the show. Traditionally, the Dubai Air Show is a moment where you hear about some massive purchases from the likes of Emirates and Etihad, and that's no different this year. We've just seen some flashes on the wires over the last hour. Emirates saying they will order 50 Airbus A350 aircraft, a deal worth $16 billion at list prices. Those will deliver in 2023. And the CEO of the airline Emirates also saying that they will have ordered a total of 123 A380 aircraft, which of course is a big long-term move for Airbus.
They're saying that they're still in discussions with Boeing about the 787 order. Boeing obviously under a lot of scrutiny.
Definitely. Well, meanwhile, back here in Europe, Yellow Vest protesters staged rallies across France over the weekend. Some turned violent as participants marked the first anniversary of their anti-government movement. Demonstrators continue to object to French President Emmanuel Macron's social policies. Police in Paris arrested more than 100 people. French authorities said that 28,000 protesters took part. Gilets Jaunes leaders, meanwhile, put the figure at around 44,000.
Meanwhile, Boris Johnson's Conservatives are currently polling at 42% amongst likely voters. This is according to Survation. Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party in the same poll trailed with 28%, and there were 4 other surveys published on Saturday. All of those gave the Tories double-digit leads. Now, today's Survation poll suggests support for the Lib Dems is at 13%, while the Brexit Party stands at 5%. Now, despite his weaker poll numbers, Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn has ruled out a coalition government if his party cannot win an outright majority during the election on December the 12th. Corbyn told the BBC's Andrew Marr show that he would not promise Scotland another independence referendum soon as part of any agreement with the Scottish National Party, the SNP.
And Jeremy Corbyn will join Liberal Democrat leader Joe Swinson and Boris Johnson at the CBI conference today, all expected to address business leaders with speeches at the event. Johnson's expected to acknowledge that large British companies did not initially support Brexit, but he is expected to insist that only his party can deliver any certainty anytime soon. Mushtaba Rahman is the managing director for Europe at Eurasia. Can he deliver certainty?
Jeremy Corbyn.
No, Boris Johnson, or either. Is there any certainty in this life?
I mean, I do think we are looking at a Tory majority government. That's what the polling now suggests. The Tories have an average of a 10-point lead. Labour's around 29. I mean, this is a classic two-party election. The Lib Dem advance has not materialised, and the Brexit Party is being squeezed by virtue of Farage not standing candidates in the 317 Tory constituencies, but then also that being a symbolic, I think, boost for the government and for Boris Johnson.
Mustafa, a question about the polls, because this is a very different election from previous elections, and this time there's this concept of tactical voting. Do you not think that the polls are overestimating, in this case, the Tory lead over the Labour Party, and underestimating the impact that tactical voting could have?
It's possible. I think Team Boris is very concerned about being seen to be complacent, so the message in public is that they need to win a number of seats in order to deliver a majority. They don't want to talk about the surge that they're currently seeing. So, I mean, it's possible that the polls are wrong and that Labour will perform better than expected.
But we saw that in 2017.
Absolutely, and that's part of the reason why I think Team Boris is so cautious. I mean, this is not really a Brexit election. I'd say it's 50-50 Brexit, but also domestic issues. And if there is a focus on Tory austerity, public services, flooding, all of these things could potentially benefit the Labour Party throughout the course of the campaign.
And it's not just tactical voting, of course. We've seen massive fluctuations in the way that British people have voted over the last decade. For those watching outside of the UK, perhaps not closely following this as much as you, can you give them that note of caution about how significant that fluctuation could mean for how accurate these polls end up being?
I mean, the data is interesting. There is evidence to suggest that the Tories are leading among leave-facing voters. In some of these constituencies, Conservative, Labour, marginal constituencies, the Tories do need to make gains. That is something of a gamble, although, as I say, there is data to suggest the Tories are leading among working class voters. They could prove to be stubbornly loyal in the context of an election and ultimately vote Labour because they trust Corbyn more on domestic policy, on the NHS, on the cost of living, even though they do recognise that Boris is more likely to deliver a clearer outcome on Brexit.
Mustafa, what does this mean for the Brexit deal? I mean, clearly if there's an absolute majority for the Tories, then you would assume that the Brexit deal in its current format, the Boris Johnson deal, would get passed. What about a Tory minority government, and indeed what would happen in a Labour minority government?
So Tory minority government is a big headache. I don't think that will last very long. I think it would result in another Article 50 extension and at some point another general election. Very unclear whether the withdrawal agreement would even go through if there was a Tory minority government. Labour minority government, equally confusing, and I think actually more confused by virtue of Corbyn's appearance on Andrew Marr yesterday. After renegotiating the deal, Corbyn has essentially said now it will be for conference to decide whether or not they support that deal or remain in a second referendum. Jeremy Corbyn kind of wants to remain, godfather of the country, float above the issue, which I just don't think is credible for an incoming Prime Minister. For a Tory majority government, which is the most likely scenario, the policy of the government is being shaped by the campaign. So we do know the government is at the moment committed not to extend the transition period. They're committing to a low alignment Canada-style deal. That's absent any cabinet discussion. That's simply being dictated by virtue of the dynamic on the campaign.
Mustafa, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us. Mustafa Rahman, the Managing Director of Europe in Eurasia. Now, that is it for our show today, though. I'm Jemana Versace.
And I'm Willem Marks, Worldwide Exchange. Up next.
Do you have concerns about mild memory loss related to aging? Prevagen is the #1.
'Tis the season to be hunched over your laptop. Not on our watch. In real life, you can fill your senses and your baskets. Feel all the sights, sounds, lols, and OMG. Wear laughing emojis on actual smiley faces. Battery's running low. Take the kids to Santa's Grotto. In real life, you can find just the right present using the most advanced search engine in the world. Your eyes. We hunt in real life. Brent Cross, London. Free parking for all sleighs and cars.
At Lidl, we're big on all those Christmas parties. The season to be jolly. Try our party time Indian snack selection for only $2.99. And our party time mac and cheese bites for just $1.19. Big on a Christmas you can believe in. Now that's big on quality and always Lidl on price. Subject to availability, selected stores excludes an eye.
Dell celebrates your small business this November with early Black Friday deals. Our biggest Black Friday ever starts right now. Save up to 50% on business tech, including Windows 10 computers, powerful servers, and the latest award-winning monitors, all with free delivery. Call 0800 085 4878 to talk to a Dell advisor today. That's 0800 085 4878. Or visit dell.co.uk/SB deals for Dell's biggest Black Friday ever. Limited time online offer. Hurry while stocks last. T's and C's apply.
If you're planning on driving this weekend, expect delays on the A406 North Circular Road. There'll be road closures between Edmonton and Tottenham from 10 p.m. on Friday the 15th of November to 5 a.m. on Monday the 18th of November, while we carry out essential maintenance and repairs. All roads in the surrounding area will be extremely busy, so please allow more time for your journey and expect delays in the area. Plan ahead and check alternative routes at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
It's hard to enjoy your daily yoga routine when your mind is on your next VAT return and how to avoid the usual mistakes. But with QuickBooks, the new VAT Smart Scan technology does the work for you. As the deadline approaches, it checks for duplicates, looks for anomalies, and reviews VAT codes. So your biggest struggle is touching your forehead with your ankle.
Search for QuickBooks, perfect for making tax digital. QuickBooks, backing you. Each day you grab the keys, pop them in the ignition, and off you go without a second thought. But what if the unpredictable happens and you wake up with something like a flat battery? You'd have been better off if someone had checked it all out, right? But that's going to cost you. What if the cost was nothing? Book a free checkup online and our experts will complete a 29-point visual check and top up vital fluids, no matter what make of vehicle you own. And we're so confident in our checks, we'll also give you 20% off your next service. How's that for peace of mind? Visit your local Vauxhall retailer and quote VX20. T's and C's apply.
Stuck in traffic during the big game? With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to your favorite NFL team on the go. No TV required. Even during rush hour, you won't miss a single touchdown. Listen to the NFL on TuneIn Premium today.
The good snap, the ball put down, the right-footed kick is up, it's got the distance, it's accurate enough, it is good! The hand off to Carson, slithers through the crease between the guard and the center. And
tonight, TuneIn has your Monday night NFL football with the Kansas City Chiefs at the Los Angeles Chargers. Kickoff at 8:15 p.m. Eastern.
He lost one in the end zone, it's a diving one-hand catch, the tight end in the back of the end zone!
At home or on the go, hear the home and away call of every NFL game this season on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
28,000 and beyond. The Dow in record territory as trade headlines help fuel the rally. Crisis in Hong Kong. Weekend protests turning violent once again. A live report from that region that's coming up. The Gray Lady investigates and FedEx responds. New details this morning on a company who went from owning $1.5 billion in taxes to zero taxes, a big move there. And then the Mustang goes all E. Ford lifting the curtain on a radical new look and powertrain for the venerable Mustang nameplate. A one-on-one with Ford CEO Jim Hackett coming up. And then Saudi Aramco falling short. The company out with a new valuation that's less than investors were expecting as worldwide exchange begins right now. Welcome to the show. I'm Dominic Chu in this morning for Brian Sullivan. Here's how your money in the global markets are setting the day up after the Dow closed above 28,000 for the first time ever on Friday, breaking above that key level just in the last few moments of trading on that day. You can see there the time lapse of the moves. This morning, stock futures indicating the Dow will open up slightly higher. The Dow is coming off its longest win streak since February. The S&P is seeing its longest win streak in 2 years at this stage. And as you can see, the Dow Jones up by another 40 points if these gains hold into the opening bell. The S&P up by 3 points and the Nasdaq up by about 17. If you take a look at the overall picture, also bonds, a key focus as they keep moving higher, those yields. You can see the 10-year benchmark note yield 1.85%, the 2-year note yield 1.62%. So we continue to watch the interest rate complex move slightly higher. Now as we go worldwide, in the Asian trade, China cutting a short-term interest rate for the first time since 2015. The surprise move sparking talk that more Chinese stimulus could be on the way. And as you can see there, a lot of green across the board here. The Shanghai Composite, mainland China, up over 0.5%. The Hang Seng in Hong Kong up almost 1.5%. And the Nikkei in Japan, a 0.5% gain as well. In the European trade, we are seeing a little bit of perhaps hesitation there. Pluses and minuses. German DAX off 0.1%. The CAC in France, 0.25%. But the FTSE 100 in the UK up 0.1%. Let's get a look at some of the other top stories we are following. New developments in the U.S.-China trade talks. Over the weekend, Chinese Vice Premier Liu He spoke by phone with Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin and U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer. Chinese state media says the men discussed a Phase 1 trade deal, and the discussions were, quote-unquote, constructive. The sides reportedly agreed to remain in close contact. Now, in deal news as well, Yahoo Japan and Chat App Line say that they've reached a basic agreement to merge. That deal does include a number of joint ventures and a $3.1 billion buyout of Line's minority shareholders. As you can see there, some green across the screen for Z Holdings and Line Corporation in Japanese trading. And then Saudi Aramco says it's aiming for a valuation of around $1.6 to $1.7 trillion for its planned initial public offering. Now, that range does fall short of the initial $2 trillion plus targeted by Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, but it would still be the world's biggest ever IPO by valuation. And now a developing story overnight as Hong Kong demonstrations continue and turn violent once again. Hong Kong police used rubber bullets and tear gas as they stormed into a university held by protesters. Fiery explosions erupted. Anti-government protesters had barricaded themselves inside the campus for days, launching firebombs at police. Police did make arrests in that movement. Well, back to the markets. Just one session after the Dow cracked 28,000 for the first time ever. A big week ahead for you and your money. Several retailers will be in focus, and they report quarterly results this week, including Home Depot, Kohl's, Target, Lowe's, Gap, Macy's. You get the idea. A lot of retail in focus. You've also got October housing starts out tomorrow, the minutes from last month's Fed meeting on Wednesday, and existing home sales on Thursday. A lot of stuff to talk about. So let's go over all of these catalysts with Joel Schulman, founder and managing director of Entrepreneur Shares. And Joel, we welcome you into the discussion with a market that's at record highs. Yeah. Are we in danger of a further melt up? Could this market rally continue given what we've seen?
Well, I don't ever think it's a danger to have a melt up. I do think we're going to have better returns, better prospects in small cap and non-U.S. So those are the two markets that have not yet recovered from the 2018 highs. We're seeing U.S. large caps certainly well beyond those highs. But we've got a bit of more room, maybe another 5 to 10-15% for U.S. small caps, U.S. mid caps, and non-U.S.
So is there a feeling, Joel, that those small caps and mid caps can really play catch up with the rest of the large cap? I only say this because we've heard so often from many experts on our air that the small cap side of things have been underperforming and that we can't really get that real broad-based rally unless those small caps really participate.
Well, we saw in the last month, I was here a month ago and we were talking about this, and they've been up 6% since that time. A couple of stocks in particular that I'm monitoring and talked about last time are up 20 to 22% last month. I think those things are coming back. And so this week may be choppy with the various news that's coming out, but we still have another 5-6 weeks before year end. I think we're going to have a Christmas rally. I think January is going to be strong, and it's going to be small caps, U.S. small caps, U.S. mid caps, non-U.S. I think it's going to lead it.
What a difference a year makes. I say that only because it was this time last year when we were talking about the Fed Chair Jerome Powell, the interest rate trajectory that we were looking at, and then all of a sudden we got a steep sell-off.
Yeah.
It is not like that at all this time around.
No, that's right. Fourth quarter is really rough up until Christmas week, and then from Christmas to now, we've seen markets up 30 to 40%. And by the way, a lot of viewers may not recognize that of the Russell 1000 growth, it's been up 28%. About 8.5% are two companies driving that. So 8.5% are from Microsoft and from Apple. So when you remove those two stocks, I mean, the rest of the market's just okay. I mean, it's still strong, but it's really, this market's being led largely by two stocks.
All right, so let's say if those two stocks are driving things, what else needs to happen then for this rally to maintain the trajectory that it's on? I ask because there have been a lot of naysayers out there who say that the economic data, at least the soft survey-based data, has not been supportive of an economy, globally speaking, that should have markets, numerous markets, either at record highs or multi-year highs.
Well, what's interesting about this question, and we track entrepreneurial companies, public entrepreneurial companies, and most of the growth among the S&P 500 is about 20, 30 companies. Most of the growth, Russell 1000, 30, 40 companies. So this is not a market that's being driven broad-based among 800, 900 companies. Most companies are just kind of plodding along. A lot of people also don't recognize we've got a lot of M&A activity. I mean, it's trillions of dollars in M&A activities. It's like $5 trillion last year and about the same this year. So a lot of the market's moving up for that. We're seeing a lot of dollars coming in. They're boosting the markets. We're seeing securities pulled out, and we're seeing layoffs in some of these companies. So there's a handful of companies that are growing, driving revenues, growing organically, hiring people. And so when you look at the market, the job growth is uneven, and we're seeing companies like that.
Just a few seconds left here. Okay. You deal with a lot of these entrepreneurial-based companies.
Yes. Yeah.
What does the IPO picture look like right now? Does it signal a healthy market?
Well, the IPO market's been off a little bit since, we've had Peloton, we've had WeWorks, and that's kind of driven a nail in that coffin, to a large extent for companies that don't have profits. They may have revenues, but they don't have profits. And so there's a lot of these companies are now suspect. We've seen Uber and Lyft, Uber's down 40-45%. We're seeing the CEO, the founder, selling off his stock. And so there's pessimism among those companies, but we still have other companies coming out. You mentioned Aramco, from Saudi Arabia, coming out $1.7 trillion. I mean, clearly there's appetite for companies that have revenues and have profits.
All right. Joel Schulman, thank you very much for those market thoughts. Well, coming up on the show, how FedEx went from owing trillions of dollars in taxes, well, at least billions of dollars in taxes, to near zero. The New York Times taking a deep dive, and FedEx is now responding. Plus, live from the Dubai Air Show, how a first on CNBC interview, the COO of Airbus, and his take on the ongoing grounding of rival Boeing's 737 MAX jet. And then later,
today's big number, 75,842. That's how many Ford Mustangs were sold in 2018, making it the best-selling American muscle car last year, beating out the Dodge Challenger and the Chevy Camaro.
All right, the pony car wars continue. Another first on CNBC interview with Ford CEO Jim Hackett about the company's all-new electric pony car, kind of. A very busy hour still ahead when Worldwide Exchange returns after this.
Do you have concerns about mild memory loss related to aging? Prevagen is the #1 pharmacist-recommended memory support brand. You can find it in the vitamin aisle in stores everywhere. Prevagen, healthier brain, better life.
Whether your beauty routine is 3 steps or 57, make Nature's Bounty Hair, Skin, and Nails Step 1. It's the #1 brand uniquely formulated for silky hair, glowing skin, and healthy nails. Nature's Bounty, because you're better off healthy.
As a principal, I can tell you this. When one student gets left behind, we all get left behind. This is a problem that affects each and every one of us. Together with IBM, we've created a whole new kind of school called PTAC. Within 6 years, students can graduate with a high school diploma, a college degree, and a pathway to a competitive job.
You know what's going up today?
Today, there are more than 100,000 PTAC students around the world. It's a game changer.
We're doing the DNA sequencing of over 10,000 humans each week. Personalized medicine means that if you go into the DNA of a human being, you will have a fingerprint of everything that makes them susceptible to disease. Then we can target those people for both preventative measures and gene-based therapies to try to attack diseases that are among the most challenging for mankind. This is the future of business. I watch CNBC.
We are the dreamers.
We changed the world.
Because we don't give up.
IU can help you live your dream. IU is an online college, so your campus is wherever you want it to be.
Take classes when you want to take classes.
You receive the tools you need at no extra cost.
Even a brand new laptop and tablet to use in school. Call IU, then tell them your dream.
1-800-967-1179. 1-800-967-1179.
Life Room by Four Seasons, where outdoor living meets future technology. No matter your style or budget, Four Seasons has got you covered. Simple shade from the sun? Covered. Outdoor dining in style? Covered. Need additional living space? Oh yeah, that too. Call today and arrange your free design consultation. Four Seasons, we've got you covered.
All right, that's a live shot of Chicago, Illinois, coming up on 4:12 Central Time. A chilly day in the Windy City. Well, new this morning, FedEx CEO Fred Smith is firing back at the New York Times over an article about the company's tax bill. And Rahel Solomon joins us now with more on that story. It's billions of dollars worth of taxes we are talking about here.
Yes, it is. Okay, so the New York Times publishing an expose yesterday on the company's taxes. So the paper reporting that between 2017 and 2018, FedEx managed to cut its tax bill from $1.5 billion to zero, as its effective tax rate dropped from 34% to less than zero. So financial filings show that FedEx paid $2 billion in federal income taxes over the previous decade. And the Times says that this all came after FedEx and its CEO, Fred Smith, in particular, lobbied hard for the Trump administration's tax cuts. The tax cuts were, of course, designed to encourage capital investments by companies. But the Times says that FedEx spent less on that in 2018 than it did in 2017, passing most of those savings on to shareholders through buybacks and dividends. In a statement last night, Smith calls the report distorted and factually incorrect, and also challenges the publisher and business editor of the Times to a public debate. He says that the focus should be federal tax policy and the relative societal benefits of business investments and their intended benefit to the U.S. economy, especially for lower and middle-class wage earners. Smith also claims that the Times paid no income tax in 2017 and only $30 million last year, while also cutting capital investment. So the Times has yet to respond to that challenge, but...
What an interesting dynamic.
What an interesting development.
I mean, just first of all, the idea now that a corporation in America is trying to minimize its tax bill. Now this has become a hot topic these days, only because
and FedEx wouldn't be the only one.
And FedEx would not be the only one out there doing
Right.
it. But now the challenge from Fred Smith to the in essence, the management
Right.
and ownership
To a
of the New York
public debate.
Times, not just about the merits of a topic, but also about their own tax bill.
Well,
on this
it
whole
sort of
situation.
begs the question, people in glass houses, if in fact that is true. But, you know, it almost sounds very reminiscent, not to make light of the situation of I challenge you to a duel. Like, not only am I going to challenge you on this, but let's have a debate about it.
Well, it's just crazy, Rahel. Thank you very much for that, by the way, that you have two very, very interesting sides and numerous people, characters at the center of this. It should
I wonder
be great
if the president
to play
will weigh in.
I wonder if the president will. Rahel Solomon, thank you very much for that. Well, still on deck for the show, what Tim Cook, another character, and President Trump are likely to discuss when they both tour a Texas Apple facility. That happens later on this week. Plus, from Beyond Meat to the Impossible Burger, plant-based foods are all the rage. Now, another name you need to know is getting into the game. Fast Company Editor-in-Chief Stephanie Mehta here to discuss. Plus, we are live from the invitation-only East Tech West, I'm going to call it the East-West Tech Conference in Guangzhou, China, where our Deirdre Bosa is exploring everything from 5G wireless to artificial intelligence with the top names in the business. Deirdre, over to you.
That's right, Don. We've got it all down markets. There's optimism that trade tensions may be easing, but here at East Tech West in Guangzhou, China, some of the biggest investors and companies in technology are trying to figure out what the long-term effects are. Will there be a decoupling? Is the battle for tech supremacy just getting underway? When we come back, we'll have all the highlights for you.
Can you customize the S&P 500 to meet your client's growth objective? Only Sector Spider ETFs can divide the benchmark into 11 investable pieces. This allows you to underweight sectors like real estate and utilities and overweight sectors like technology. Sector Spiders, write your next chapter in investing. Before investing, consider the fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses. Go to sectorspiders.com for a prospectus containing this information. Read it carefully.
Well, my rough and bumpy skin is on the back of my arms. Nothing I've ever tried worked.
Gold Bond Rough and Bumpy Skin Therapy exfoliates, smooths, softens, reduces bumps 74%.
I have nice, smooth skin because of Gold Bond.
Ultimate lotion, ultimate skin.
Okay, you ready?
Yes.
Now.
A Peloton? Give it up for our first time ride.
All right, first ride. I'm a little nervous, but excited. Let's do this. 5 days in a row. You surprised? I am. 6 a.m. Yay.
Rising with the sun.
That was totally worth it.
Let's go, Grace in Boston. 50 ride.
She just said my name. A year ago, I didn't realize how much this would change me. Thank you.
This holiday, give the gift of Peloton.
It is nice.
His haircut is nice. This is the most awarded minivan 3 years in a row.
The van just talks.
Sales guy, give him the employee price, then give me your foot. Hands-free sliding doors, stow-and-go seats. Can your car do this? Man, y'all getting a hookup, and y'all don't even work here. Don't act like I'm not doing y'all a favor. Y'all should be singing my praises. Pacifica!
Purchase and get $5,361 below MSRP plus 0% financing for 60 months on the 2019 Pacifica Limited.
Sundown vitamins are all non-GMO, made with naturally sourced colors and flavors, and are gluten and dairy free. They're all clean all the time. Even if sometimes we're not. Sundown vitamins, all clean all the time.
Well, the East Tech West Conference is an annual invite-only tech retreat held in Guangzhou, China. Now in its second year, the event is bringing together a guest list of the world's most influential tech leaders in artificial intelligence, 5G wireless, and much more. Our own Deirdre Bosa joins us now live from Guangzhou with the latest there. And Deirdre, a lot of characters, a lot of companies very much in focus there. What's the scene been like?
Absolutely. And you know what, Dom? A lot has changed since last year, but also a lot hasn't. The trade war is still top of mind for many of the participants here. Now, more than a year in, the landscape has shifted for Chinese and U.S. companies alike. Now, amid reports that the Trump administration is going to grant another reprieve for Huawei, the company's chairman, a keynote here, was defiant today, telling us that the U.S. blacklist has a limited impact and it will hurt U.S. companies more. He added that his company has yet to have any contact with the administration. Now, another major topic here, Dom, no surprise, is artificial intelligence. Now, Microsoft is actually working with Chinese institutions and government on facial recognition initiatives, a touchy subject, especially given Washington's rhetoric regarding human rights abuses in the Xinjiang region. Now, I asked Microsoft's CEO and chairman of the Greater China region how they balance those initiatives here in China with the ethics that they set out in Redmond, Washington.
AI through a set of principles, and Microsoft and Satya Nadella and Brad Smith, our president, have decided that Microsoft we will have and we will make sure that we operate under those principles. So we have 6 of them and very strict around transparency and security and privacy, and so we have to stay core to that.
Now, Dom, I also spoke to the CEO and co-founder of Pony AI. This is an autonomous vehicle startup based here in China with funding from Sequoia China as well as Comcast Ventures, part of our parent company. I asked him who and where we were going to see a fully autonomous vehicle first. Was it going to be in the U.S. or was it going to be here in China? He actually told us that it was going to be in the U.S. because the regulations are further along. Back over to you.
All right, Deirdre, it's also, I mean, it's not just 5G wireless. It's not just about what's happening with artificial intelligence. It's also about the general tech climate there as well as with maybe the headlines coming out of Alibaba, their pending Hong Kong listing. How much is the Hong Kong conversation and the unrest there playing out? And is it having an impact on some of the big tech companies that you're speaking with out there at East Tech West?
Well, Hong Kong is only 50 miles away from here, so certainly, and there's a lot going on, so that is certainly coming into the conversations here. And everyone here, as we talk about IPOs and the next generation of disruptors and technology companies, Alibaba's IPO is top of mind. Actually, a source familiar told me today that the company will not be holding an investor luncheon that is very typical of Hong Kong listings. There's a lot of thoughts that that may have to do with the protests and the unrest. They say, though, that it's because Alibaba is such a well-known entity. There's also hopes here among the Chinese companies that Alibaba coming home to Hong Kong will encourage other companies to list, and also for retail and institutional investors to take more of a hand in equities. Back to you.
All right, Deirdre Bosa live in Guangzhou at the East Tech West Conference. Thank you very much. Coming up on the show, a new electric Mustang SUV. Is one of these things not like the other one? Ford CEO will pitch us his company's latest vehicle when Worldwide Exchange comes back right after this.
Whether your beauty routine is...
When Harlequins take on Leicester Tigers, it's always a big game. But this year, it's the big game. Hosted at Twickenham, you can expect fireworks on the field and off it. Pre-kick-off, enjoy music, entertainment and a truly incredible atmosphere. Then watch two Gallagher Premiership rugby giants go head-to-head. Tickets from just £17 children, £27 adults. Go to tickets.quins.co.uk or search Big Game 12. Kick-off 4:30pm, Saturday 28th of December, Twickenham Stadium.
'Tis the season to be hunched over your laptop. Not on our watch. In real life, you can feel your senses and your baskets. Feel all the sights, sounds, lols, and OMGs. Wear laughing emojis on actual smiley faces. Battery is running low. Take the kids to Santa's Grotto. In real life, you can find just the right present using the most advanced search engine in the world. Your eyes. We hunt in real life. Brent Cross, London. Free parking for all sleighs and cars.
At Lidl, we're big on all those Christmas parties. The season to be jolly. Try our Party Time Indian snack selection for only $2.99. And our Party Time mac and cheese bites for just $1.19. Big on a Christmas you can believe in. Now that's big on quality and always Lidl on price. Subject to availability, selected stores excludes an eye.
Dell celebrates your small business this November with early Black Friday deals. Our biggest Black Friday ever starts right now. Save up to 50% on business tech, including Windows 10 computers, powerful servers, and the latest award-winning monitors, all with free delivery. Call 0800 085 4878 to talk to a Dell advisor today. That's 0800 085 4878. Or visit dell.co.uk/SB deals for Dell's biggest Black Friday ever. Limited time online offer. Hurry while stocks last. T's and C's apply.
If you're planning on driving this weekend, expect delays on the A406 North Circular Road. There'll be road closures between Edmonton and Tottenham from 10pm on Friday the 15th of November to 5am on Monday the 18th of November, while we carry out essential maintenance and repairs. All roads in the surrounding area will be extremely busy, so please allow more time for your journey and expect delays in the area. Plan ahead and check alternative routes at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Welcome back. Let's get a check on this other morning's top headlines. NBC's Philip Mena live in the New York newsroom with the latest. Good morning and happy Monday, Philip.
Hey, Dom, good morning to you. 4 people are dead and 6 more injured after a shooting at a football watch party in Fresno, California. According to authorities, about 35 people were in the backyard watching a game when 1 or 2 suspects snuck in and opened fire into the crowd. No children were injured. Authorities say it is very likely this was a targeted shooting. Police have not yet made any arrests. A critical week ahead in the impeachment inquiry as a wave of witnesses prepare to testify in front of cameras. Possibly the most pivotal appearance is the ambassador caught at the center of this political firestorm. Gordon Sondland is scheduled to speak on Wednesday. The envoy to the European Union is the only witness expected to appear with firsthand knowledge of President Trump's push for investigations into his political rivals. This week's hearings will begin tomorrow morning with 4 witnesses scheduled to testify. The mayor of South Bend, Indiana, is officially a Democratic frontrunner. In the first state to get their say in the 2020 election, Pete Buttigieg is at the top of the field. A new poll from the Des Moines Register has Mayor Pete on top with 25% support among likely Iowa caucus goers. Elizabeth Warren, Joe Biden, and Bernie Sanders all trailed. Dom, back to you.
All right, thank you very much, Philip Mena. Coming up on the show, this morning's other top stories, including the market's record run, the Dow closing above 28,000 for the first time ever, and futures are pointing to even more green on the screen. Stay tuned. Worldwide Exchange is back right after this.
growth companies need S.
I've got to tell you about our beautiful city break in Bath. Midweek is the perfect time to beat the crowds. Just an hour and a half by train from London. It was so relaxing. We headed straight for Bath Christmas Market. Oh, I can still smell the roasted chestnuts and mulled wine from the chalets. We dropped off our Christmas shopping at the hotel. Then it was off to be spellbound at the Theatre Royal Bath. There's so much to do in Bath. I'm already planning my next trip.
Discover the magic of Bath this Christmas. Plan ahead at visitbath.co.uk/Christmas.
For the independent bookseller who found you that first edition.
For the baker who brings the smell of freshly baked bread to your door.
And for the barista who never needs to ask your name.
We've all got a part to play.
Every little tap keeps your high street alive.
And helps your communities thrive.
So if you love where you live, shop small.
Shopping on your local high street can make a big difference. Shop small. Only by American Express.
At Lidl, we're big on all those Christmas parties. The season to be jolly. Try our Party Time Indian snack selection for only $2.99. And our Party Time mac and cheese bites for just $1.19. Big on a Christmas you can believe in. Now that's big on quality and always Lidl on price. Subject to availability, selected stores excludes an eye.
On 3, our unlimited data is actually unlimited, like for reals. That means you can scroll and scroll and scroll through all the Black Friday deals.
Because we have no speed limits, no data caps, and you'll be 5G ready at no extra cost.
Wow, so many savings.
Our Black Friday deals are now on. Save up to £480. Switch to 3, in-store or online. See 3.co.uk/unlimited-data. Savings on selected phones on 24-month contracts. Ends 5th of December. Terms apply.
If you're planning on driving this weekend, expect delays on the A406 North Circular Road. There'll be road closures between Edmonton and Tottenham from 10 p.m. on Friday the 15th of November to 5 a.m. on Monday the 18th of November, while we carry out essential maintenance and repairs. All roads in the surrounding area will be extremely busy, so please allow more time for your journey and expect delays in the area. Plan ahead and check alternative routes at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
This is someone making an online booking at Ford.co.uk using the words Ford20 so they can service their Ford for £20 less. And this is someone who didn't get their Ford serviced. You see, at Ford, we use Ford genuine parts and Ford trained technicians. Plus, if you quote Ford20 when you book with us online, you can receive £20 off. Book now at Ford.co.uk or visit your local participating dealer. Ford service. No one knows your Ford better.
Retail customers only. At participating Ford dealers. Cannot be used with other promotions. T's and C's apply. Search Ford service for more information.
Another milestone in the market's bull run. The Dow closing above 28,000 for the first time ever. Layoffs looming at WeWork. A new report suggests the company may slash thousands of jobs as early as this week. And Ford all charged up about the debut of its CNBC, I'm Dominic Chu in for Brian Sullivan this morning. Here is how your money looks as we are halfway through the 5 a.m. hour Eastern time. Stock futures pointing to even more gains. The Dow coming off its longest win streak since February. The S&P 500 seeing its longest win streak in 2 years. Now, if you can see there, we are going to open up by another 50 points if these futures gains hold into the opening bell for trading today. Turning now to the bond market, we are seeing a slight tick higher in interest rates as well across the curve. 10-year benchmark U.S. Treasury note yields currently 1.85%. 2-year note yields currently about 1.625%. Let's check on the Asian markets as well, where stocks kicked the new trading week off on a mostly positive note. Japan, Hong Kong, and Shanghai all moving to the upside. China cutting a key short-term interest rate for the first time since 2015. Now, the surprise move sparking more talk that Chinese stimulus could be on the way as well. The European markets, however, not reacting nearly as positive. It's more of a mixed picture there. If you take a look at what's happening with Europe, the German DAX was just slightly to the downside as was the CAC in France, and now you can see the FTSE 100 just marginally to the upside. Let's get a look at some of the other top stories we are following this morning. The FAA is now weighing how it approves planes for flight in the wake of 2 deadly crashes involving Boeing's 737 MAX jet. In an interview with the Wall Street Journal, FAA Administrator Stephen Dixon says the agency is considering ways to fundamentally alter how new planes are actually certified. Dixon says that could include the FAA being involved in the design of the plans from the actual beginning. And then WeWork is reportedly planning a massive round of layoffs in a bid to become more financially stable. The New York Times says the company may announce as early as this week it is slashing 4,000 jobs. The Times says that number may ultimately jump to 6,000. WeWork declined to comment when contacted by CNBC. And speaking of WeWork, Fast Company also doing a deep dive on that company. In its latest issue, the magazine details what it calls the doomed relationship between SoftBank's Masa Son and former WeWork CEO Adam Neumann. Stephanie Mehta, editor-in-chief at Fast Company. Stephanie is actually here with us this morning to talk about WeWork and all things tech. Thank you very much for being here with us this morning.
Thanks for having me, Dom.
So, this story about WeWork has been so captivating for everybody, not just on Wall Street, but across America, because people just know the company. What exactly is it now that bears kind of like the reporting that the Times has done about whether or not we are seeing the business take a decline, and how is Masa Son feeling about it?
What we've discovered is that you're right. WeWork is a story that has captivated not only the investor community, but Main Street, because so many of us have either done work in a WeWork. It is a household name. And that is actually to Adam Neumann's credit. The fact that he has taken real estate and turned co-working space into a brand suggests that he was doing something right at WeWork. The challenge really has been, and what our story reveals, is that the infusion of cash and the infusion of confidence that Masa Son brought to this company, instead of it being the kind of thing that you would think should be celebrated, in fact created chaos at the company. This infusion of cash suddenly kind of made Adam Neumann feel like he was invincible, that he was a Superman, but that he also felt this pressure to spend the money and to live up to a very lofty expectation set by Masa Son. When they met, Masa Son said that the last person who made him feel the way that Adam felt was Alibaba's Jack Ma.
That's a big comparison to make. To compare in some ways Adam Neumann to Jack Ma. Masa Son is not a novice investor. Masa Son has had a lot of experience with a lot of different bubble, crash, boom type environments. What is it that maybe he got wrong this time about that big relationship between SoftBank and WeWork?
I think part of it was the haste with which this relationship was forged. As we point out in the story and others have reported, they spent about half an hour together before Masa Son essentially committed to invest in the company. That's